Welcome r/EntitledParents. Mother thinks she has rights to my child and treats him like a doll to show off. Honestly, I just need a place to vent. My mother is the entitled parent in this story. Her and I have never had a great relationship. She resented me growing up because she was a single mom and never wanted children. She would never spend time or engage with me and would instead throw money at me to show she cared. Now I'm grown up and independent and just had a baby of my own, and she feels entitled to my son. I have made certain decisions about his upbringing that I'm trying to adhere to. Nothing crazy, just trying to avoid using unnecessary products on him. No baby lotion, no diaper cream, unless he gets a rash, homemade baby food, etc. He's now 4 months, and it has been working well for us. My mother is very insistent that she gets to see him 2 to 3 times a week. She refers to herself as Glamour, a mix of glam and grandma, and has already procured a few items that say best grandma ever. I have been very hesitant to let her watch him for extended periods of time. I didn't have the best upbringing and honestly believe she would not do what's best for my son. She has always been a very materialistic person and extremely concerned about the image she presents to other people. So I get anxiety thinking of him staying overnight at her place. She keeps asking for him to spend the night, saying she's doing it for me because I need the sleep. But I know it's because she likes the novelty of having a baby around. She first started asking for him to spend the night at her place when he was 2 weeks old. I have said no every time. When she was first allowed to babysit him, I had to set ground rules because she kept trying to plan parties whenever he was over. She was trying to show him off to all her friends and neighbors. The thing is, he is a baby. Large groups of people are not good for babies because their immune systems are weak, and our city has had a number of measles outbreaks. I had to tell her repeatedly that she couldn't be inviting groups of strangers over to pass him around like a doll. She finally agreed, and I let him spend a few hours at her place. Still, she kept asking for him to spend the night. She also calls me every day asking when he is going to visit her again and offering to take him off my hands for a few days, like he is an inconvenience. My husband had to go to BC for a wedding, so I was alone for a week. It was hard 6 days into it, and I was at the end of my rope. I had barely had any adult interaction and had only slept 3 hours a day. So I call my mother up and ask her if my son and I can spend the night at her place. I needed sleep, but didn't want to leave him there without me all night. I figured this would be a good compromise. I would be available if anything went wrong, and she would get off my back about him staying over. She had been nagging me for weeks about how I should just give him pablum, and he would sleep through the night. He was a preemie and our pediatrician said to wait for solids, but she thought she knew best. I had to constantly tell her not to feed him anything but his milk. The night came where I was supposed to go to her place. I get there and there are 15 other people over. Turns out she was having a dinner party. Whether or not she had this arranged before I asked to come over, I don't know. I told her my son goes to bed at 8 and you really needed to sleep. She assured me everyone would be gone by 9. That didn't happen. They ended up starting a bonfire and she's trying to get me to sit by the fire with my son. I tell her I don't want him around all that smoke. He's only 4 months old, so he needs to stay in the house. Besides, it's 8 and he needs to go to bed. She tells me I'm being unreasonable and should just let him sleep by the fire. I put my foot down and say no. He ends up in his bassinet and I'm waiting for the party to be done so I can sleep. Because my husband has been gone, and I have been dealing with the babe on my own for 6 days, my sleep schedule has been completely out of whack. I was hoping to take some sleeping pills to get a good night's rest, since she was going to eat him through the night. So now I'm waiting for her to come in and take over for me. 10 rolls around, and she pops in for a drink before heading back out. I ask her again how late the party is going to go, since I'm desperate to get some sleep. She tells me it should be over soon, again, and that she can't stay in the house because she has guests over and she needs to entertain them. 10:45 comes and she's still at the bonfire. Again she comes in to grab something and she sees that I'm still up. She tells me I'm being silly and should just go to sleep. She doesn't seem to understand that I have insomnia and need to take sleeping pills and can't do that until someone else can watch my son. The someone being her, since I asked and she offered. I remind her that I was there to sleep and was waiting on her. She then tells me I'm being ungrateful since she had this party planned and she couldn't just ask everyone to leave. She said I should just go to sleep and not worry about my son so much. I tell her she can't be taking care of him if she's outside. She wouldn't even hear him if he woke up. She said I should stop stressing that people will leave soon and went back to her party. 11:30 comes around and I'm so tired I start crying. I can't sleep and I wasn't getting the help I asked for. I decide to just take my son and go home. If I was doing it on my own I'd rather be around my own things and in my own bed. I pack him up and send her a text saying she was too preoccupied to watch my son that we were going home. She didn't even see my message until 12:30. How well could she have watched him if she didn't leave her bonfire until then? I ended up getting a string of messages saying it was unfair of me to take him away. That I shouldn't say she didn't care because she spent $700 on him that day, so obviously she cared. I never mentioned anything about caring or not caring. She said I was being ungrateful because if I had stayed we would have been able to sleep in the morning while she took care of him. I don't trust for 1 minute that she would have done right by him. Her guests were taking up all her time. A week goes by and she asks twice again if he can stay the night at her place. I have no faith in her watching him overnight, but I agree to let her watch him during the day Saturday. She says she's going to sleep in, but should pick him up around 9 or 10. 11 rolls around and I haven't heard from her. I give her a call and she says she just got home and that they can't pick him up until later, so I should just drop him off at her place. She was supposed to pick him up because she lives 30 minutes out of town on an acreage, but drives right past our house when she goes shopping. I try telling her it is too inconvenient to drive him to her place. I'll just keep him with me, but she wears me down and I eventually make the drive out to her place. I tell her I'll pick him up in the evening around 9:30 or 10. At 5 I get a text from her saying she's decided to have a bonfire and has invited a bunch of people over. Seriously? The exact same thing as the week before. And tell her again I don't want my son sitting out in the hot sun or hanging around the smoke from the fire. I tell her I don't care what she does, but I will pick up my son if she can't watch him. She tells me she is watching him and that I don't need to take him. I go to get him and I pissed off. I have asked her time and again not to have him around groups of strangers, but to have him around smoke, and she just won't listen. I did even want to send him to her place, but she just kept nagging that she should watch him. So I planned my day around him being with her and then had to cancel a D&D game in the middle of the session because she couldn't respect my wishes. When I pick him up she starts yelling that I'm being ungrateful. She was doing a great job watching him and how much all her guests are loving him. She tells me that I'm unreasonable and rude. To top it off she tells me that she's going to tell my Baba about my behavior and that Baba will give me a talking to. What the woman? I should have no better than to try and trust her. She insists on babysitting my dog every weekend. He has pancreatitis and can't eat fatty foods. He gets extremely sick. But she ignores when I say this and continues to feed him bacon because he like it. If she can't take care of a dog, how the hell did I think she could take care of a child? And the worst is how she keeps acting like a victim, saying I'm treating her unfairly. Man, I really needed to get this off my chest. Oh my god, that was a read and a half. I got increasingly angry as I read all that. I'm sure Glamour loves you very much and adores the baby, but don't give in to her demands. Look into a babysitter instead. For a little bit of money you'll be able to catch some sleep and not have to worry about measles, strangers, and smoke. As you say, your child is not a prop, status symbol or a doll. Anyone who has a 4-month-old grandchild and prioritizes parties and bonfires over the well-being of a tiny little baby who needs rest, peace and quiet disqualifies themselves as a suitable sitter. I can't blame you for not letting your child stay the night alone over there, and you're doing an excellent job so far. My mother is exactly like this, and the attention of being a caring parent/grandparent is more important than being a caring parent/grandparent. Good for you for putting your foot down and not allowing that shit. I know how tough it is to deal with someone who thinks throwing money at something is the same as love and attention. Hopefully things calm down when your husband comes back, and maybe in the future, looking into getting a nanny for a week or something. Might cost some money, but then you don't have to deal with crazy. Hey sweetie, you're doing a great job. I have 5 kids and my youngest is 8 months. My mother and mother-in-law are exactly like this. I completely 100% understand what you're going through. Honestly, how my husband and I got the respect we demanded was by completely cutting our moms out of our lives until they realized that our rules were to be followed to a T. My mother-in-law wanted me to abort my youngest and hates my 4-year-old because she looks like me. So I don't send any of my kids with her. I'm sorry, your mom is the way she is. My mom was and is the exact same way. I understand. If you need a fellow mommy friend to vent to, you can always message me. It's come to my attention that my child has become a novel item in your home rather than your grandchild. I as their parent cannot respect that. I'm tired of you going out of your way to disrespect my rules for my child. It's become clear you won't listen to me, so babysitting my low and my low staying the night are off the table completely. Until you can respect me as the parent of my child and respect my rules, you won't be having my child over. End of discussion. I have told you repeatedly I don't want my baby around smoke, in the heat, and surrounded by groups of people. But you insist on hosting these ridiculous parties every single time I actually let you take my son, so you can show him off. I've seen firsthand your keenness to remain a good hostess rather than a good grandma. You pass him around, get the O's and R's you want, then you ignore him and let him be exposed to germs and smoke. He's premature. He can't be around those things. So, since you continue to put my child in harm's way, you will not be watching him. If you want to see him, you will need to coordinate a time with me. I would prefer to keep him at home, so if you want to visit you will need to call in advance. I will be keeping to the time we agree on, so if you are late I will not be letting you in. I expect you to respect my time as a parent, and if we agree to a time you should be there as promised. Period. Stick to your guns. I'm dealing with something quite similar. My son is 3 weeks old. I was pushed to take him to a family party. My husband and I put our feet down as a couple. We stayed home. It felt amazing to have a weekend together as our new little family, watching TV and holding our new baby, talking about his next milestones and snuggling. Turns out after speaking to my father there were people at the party with little colds. My dad now has the beginnings of a cold too. Slow fade her and tell her to back off. Set a schedule with her and stick to it. My mother-in-law tried to tell me I'll be over every day to help. No, I told her that we will arrange play dates ahead of time. No drop-ins please. Being able to stand up and say no to my parents felt amazing. It was such a gigantic win. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit like. If you would like to see more, feel free to subscribe.